Yo, what's going on then guys, it's your boy Ben Gregson here, and thank you so much for the amazing support on the last two Zefra videos. I really do appreciate it. So today I'm going to be covering a question that I've been asked quite often while playing on Dueling Book. I've had a couple of people spectate my games and ask me questions, which all in all I think is really cool, and thank you guys for doing that. So people have been asking me, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I've had a reasonably high success rate, but in certain matchups I can't seem to win game 2 and 3. So currently in the metagame, the main decks are Eldritch Invoked, Adamanticipator, Salamangreat, and to an extent there's like a decent level of Mermail right now. Especially with the new set coming out, Mermail's going to become a much better deck. So I'm just going to be covering what I do in the particular matchups. So this is the list we're playing at the moment. The same main deck with a slightly adjusted sideboard with the Skullmeisters and the Pankratops. So I'm just going to go into the solo mode, and I'm just going to show you what I do against each deck going first. So against Eldritch, this is your main win condition. So the thing about Zefra Path as a card is it doesn't allow your opponent to summon the Eldritch traps, because they're not being summoned from the hand or the extra deck. They're being summoned from the spell or trap card zone. They can't actually be summoned. They still have access to summoning the Eldritch Lord via its own effect, because it adds itself from the graveyard to the hand, and then summons itself from the hand. But they can't use the Eldritch spells and traps to summon it from anywhere other than the hand. So you essentially lock them completely out of the game post game 1. Game 1 I find myself searching Zefra Path a lot more often now because of how popular Eldritch is on ladder. I've climbed from 100 to 400 in a day. But like, Eldritch is the most popular deck on Dueling Book right now, so searching Path turn 1 seems to be the correct thing to do, and because we're playing a high count of traps anyway, we can get to our trap cards quite consistently. Like, if you end on Path plus Exterio, you usually win the game. Or if you end on Path plus a counter trap to protect Path, or you have Providence in your graveyard to protect Path or your scales your opponent's attempting to pop to remove the Path from the field. Eldritch just can't beat you under this card, which I think is really strong. Now, Adamanticipator, same thing. Zefra Path is really strong in the matchup. And also, this card is absolutely broken. Now, when this card is synchro summoned, while you control a synchro summon card, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same attributes as the Yangzing monsters used for its synchro summon. Now, when we're summoning this card, we're using Zefraxi and we're using Zefrany. So what we're doing is we're using Zefraxi to target Zefrany to make it a tuner, and then we're searching off the Zefrany. And this is like super easy to get access to, and then we're just making Chaofeng with some degree of protection. So for example, a counter trap, or you have Lambda plus Gamma, or you have Path. There's always some form of outlet to protect your Chaofeng in the Adamanticipator matchup. The only issue is if it gets impermed and then you don't have a follow-up after they imperm it, and they have a way to remove the Chaofeng. But the thing is, because it's 2800, it's a huge body, and also when it dies you actually get to search Gamma from your deck, because it's a search literally any tuner. When it's destroyed, you can add one tuner monster from your deck to your hand. So that's insane. And also, if this kills a monster by battle in the rock deck, you can actually summon any of your Zefra Yangzing monsters because they're earthworms, which is another cute piece of interaction. Against Salamangreat, you're also looking just to establish Path, because they can't recur anything from the graveyard at that point. Other than that, you're just looking to negate their power cards, such as Desires, Gazelle, Circle. You just don't want those cards resolving if you can't get to Path, but you can get to two forms of disruption through like Pillars plus War, or Lambda plus War, or Lambda plus Divine Strike with Gamma in hand and Surf. Like, you want to get to those boards, Game 2 and 3, I'm usually siding out the Cyberstein combo unless I'm playing against specifically invoked variants, because I think Exterio is like the nuts in that matchup. And you're siding into the Vanity's Ruler instead. Or if you're playing against Eldritch, you're siding those cards out for Cosmic Cyclone regardless. The siding strategy for the deck, which I will go over now that we've covered what we should be making on our turn 1. So when we're siding versus Salamangreat, or Eldritch, or the Rock deck going second, we completely remove Cyberstein from the deck. So for Salamangreat, we're removing Cyberstein, and we're removing Planet Pathfinder. And we're also removing Path going second, and our 9 Pillars because it's the least applicable. And we're siding in the 3 Skullmeister and the Dino Wrestler Pancratops. Or if your opponent's playing less copies of Spinny and you notice that in your games, or less copies of, what's the other guy, Foxy, you can actually just side in evenly matched and feel a lot more secure about it, as well as the Pancratops. This goes in against every matchup. Against Adamanticipator, we have the Skullmeisters and the Sphermids. We're usually siding out the same package. I also like to side out Fraxiton and a copy of Terraforming and Rota, because they are just additional copies of other cards, so they're not going to reduce the consistency of your deck because you still have the full engine. Against the back row decks, unfortunately, we do only have Cosmic Cyclone and Evenly Matched, which at times I don't think is enough. We also have Pancratops as well, which also has a lot of coverage. But the thing is, against the back row decks, your deck has a really strong matchup anyway. Outside of Anti-Spell and Imperial Order, I don't think there's any real blowouts. Like, Judgmenting your Pendulum Summon sucks, but you're playing lots of trap cards anyway. And you're playing the Gamma package and stuff. So even having your Pendulum Summon Judgmented, it sucks, but you can still do stuff through it. Going first, we don't have any cards in our sideboard for going first, because the deck itself is so strong going first. Like, you are very limited in the fact that your deck doesn't really go first poorly regardless of the matchup. Like, sometimes you'll want to side out Cyberstein because it's bad in the matchup, and you just put in one of your going second cards that just has overlap. So for example, the Cosmic Cyclones and the Skullmeisters, they always have overlap going first or second. Also, another thing I've been asked is it correct to blind second after losing? So you win game 1, you lose game 2, and you go into game 3. Is it correct for you to blind second, anticipating your opponent to side in a bunch of hate? And my personal opinion, it's no. Because your deck is so strong at doing what it does consistently, I don't think blinding second into your opponent's deck game 3, despite their deck being weaker, helps you in any way, because you then have to delete your deck with going second cards anyway. Whereas if you're going first, you have the going first advantage. Like, for example, if you play against Adamanticipator, do you really want to blind second and they draw some of their going second cards, but their hand is still good enough to combo, and you don't draw a hand trap, you draw just Zefra cards, where you could have just made Chaofeng set up a counter trap and gone pass, and they probably won't play through it regardless. Same with Eldritch. Like, why would you dilute your deck going second against Eldritch with Cosmic Cyclones and Evenly Matched, when you can just set up Path and a counter trap, or Path and, you know, numerous Zefra things for the matchup? Like, the end board versus Eldritch doesn't need to be great, it just needs to be like a counter trap to ping something away, and then like War to ping away a back row, and then you just OTK them on the follow-up with Boral Sword, because that card's fair and balanced. Salamangreat, there's some argument to blinding second against Salamangreat, because going first Salamangreat doesn't really do anything you care about outside of, like, Rage. I think Rage is the only bad card for you. But for the same reason that you wouldn't blind second in the other matchups, I think you're just better off doing what your deck's supposed to do in every matchup if you get the choice to go first. The only deck I'd choose to go second against is Mech Knight Invoked, simply because the deck just doesn't do anything going first. Like, ooh, Macabre Pass. I guess that's okay. Like, Mech Knight Invoked is such a weird matchup for Zefra, because Path doesn't do anything. And a lot of the time, their monsters are bigger than yours, and they can just swing over Zefra enemy quite easily. And most of the time, the hand is just a whole bunch of good stuff. They do the same thing your deck does, but as a counterpart. So they're the OTK deck that just has a lot of good cards that synergize together, and you are the combo/control deck that does the same thing. And you sort of have a race to see who can do their thing better. The only issue with Mech Knight Invoked is their monsters are so big, and the biggest monster in your deck comes from the extra, or is actually Zefra himself, which I have summoned in the matchup way more than I probably should have, just because you get to sort of turn 3 and 4 of just passing back and forth doing the same thing, and then you just slap Zefra on the board and they have no out to it, because no deck's playing Red Moon right now, and you can actually protect it with Providence as well. Obviously, the Cyberstein combo versus that deck stock cuts out the Invoked engine, so you just have to deal with the Mech Knight engine, the Mech Knight package or whatever. But they obviously have Link monsters, which deal with the Exterio eventually, if you don't have a counter trap to back it up. So that's that matchup really. Altergeist is often a bit iffy, but I don't think the matchup's unwinnable. It's definitely a worse matchup in the metagame right now. Simply because, like, the way Altergeist interacts with you is by bouncing your cards, and as weird as bouncing your cards affects you, if you activate Zefrath and then your opponent bounces it on resolution so you can't activate it again, your pendulum scales are 1 and 5 if you don't choose to scale a 7 scale, but if you choose to scale a 7 scale, you then can't rescale your Zefrath without warring it away. So your pendulum summoning level 4s, which don't have a high enough impact or get you enough value to be able to just beat the Altergeist engine as a whole. Like, once Altergeist begin to steamroll, they begin to steamroll super hard, which is why we're on the Cosmics and the Evenlies for the matchup, and also Pancratops, because it has a lot of overlap. Pendulum's the buy. That's a joke. Pendulum's probably a 50-50 matchup, heavily reliant on the die roll. Outside of Gamma, you have 0 interaction game 1. But at the same time, I don't think Pendulum can actually beat your going first board a lot of the time. Like, Exterio counter trap pass is just enough to beat Pendulum a lot of the time. Especially if you've got like Gamma and stuff, just general tiny pieces of interaction, though it's not much, is enough to stop a Pendulum play most of the time. Game 2 and 3, once again, is just heavily reliant on the sideboard, unfortunately. You just have to draw better than they do. But that's just how the Pendulum matchup goes. You're both playing quote-unquote heavy combo, and you don't have a big blowout card versus them, whereas they don't have a big blowout card versus you, because neither of you can play Anti-Spell Fragrance or Imperial Order without hindering yourself. So it's always going to be a constant struggle. But anyway, guys, hopefully that clears up some of your matchup questions and such. I really hope you did enjoy the video, guys. We are so close to 200 subscribers. It's unreal, and I'd really like to reach that milestone relatively soon. Obviously, we have our registration ready for Mr. Yu-Gi-Oh's tournament. This will probably be the exact list I play, maybe with a few tweaks here and there. But I'm hoping to do really well in that event. Obviously, I'll be supporting all my guys at the Hobby Vault and everybody else that I'm friends with that's taking part in the tournament. I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please leave a like. Please comment asking me questions. It's really good for the YouTube algorithm and gets my videos out there, wink wink. And please subscribe to the channel if you are new and do enjoy yourself. Have an amazing day. This has been Ben Gregson or Dilemma, signing out.